Hey everybody, this is Adam from realworldworship.org, the Real World Worship blog. And every so often I get asked about what pedals I actually use and what my personal guitar setup is. So I thought I'd make a quick video. I generally play a 98 American Standard Telecaster and run that into the Benson Monarch. It's a great amp built out of guy in Portland's building those. Highly recommend it. Have a head and cab combo, attenuator on top for home use. The memory man's there. It's not in my rig right now. It's just sitting on top of the Monarch, and actually it's plugged into the amp. The pedalboard isn't. But anyway, my main rig here is this guy, and this has been pretty consistent for as long as it's probably the longest consistency I've had on a pedalboard. This is a compromise pedalboard. And I'm not impressed when somebody gets on Gear Talk or something and says, oh, this is my ultimate pedalboard, I finally arrived. Because that probably means that they've sacrificed something in their amplifier or their guitar or something else. And I'm more interested in a compromise. How have they found a workable solution to what they need to do, and still make it all work. And so this is that. I have a smaller pedal board. It's a Salvage custom flatboard, and if you know anything about those, they're well made, but a little pricey. That's why I have the flatboard, because it's cheaper. It's also smaller because it was cheaper, and it's about the size of a pedal train, junior, something like that. So I can't put every pedal I own on it. I can't put every pedal I want on it. I can only have room for one power supply, which is the Voodoo Labs that's sitting under these two pedals. So I can't power everything I would like. So everything's a compromise here. I want to walk through it real quick. It goes directly into the disaster area DPC5. It's a programmable looper. Highly recommend their products. I've had a couple of their loopers, DPC8 Easy, their DMC-8, the MIDI controller. Really think their stuff's well made, high quality. DPC5 is my least favorite. I prefer the 8 Easy, but for what I'm doing, it's the right choice. Again, it's a compromise choice. Great thing. That's my least favorite, but that's still like saying, do you like the gold or the silver clon least? It's my least favorite of awesome things. So it goes into here, and then it goes from there. There's an always on loop, send return ring using that stereo splitter into the PettyJohn PreDrive. And the PreDrive is an always on preamp with a clean boost in it. And it's supposed to be the first in your chain. I A-B'd it having it go first versus having it in this always on loop, so it's getting the DPC5's buffer first, and I thought this sounded better. That's just a choice. So this side is always on. It's like a EQ. Here's your EQ controls. Here's your volume in and out controls. And then that has an impedance control depending on what kind of pickups you're using. I have it in the up position. I find that works better with the single coils on my Telecaster. There is a boost here, but I will talk about that when I get over to the overdrive pedal. So then it gets into the loops. The first loop goes into the compressor, JHS Pulp and Peel. Again, compromise. I had to sell the Cali 76 Compact Deluxe that I had to buy something else, and it freed up a little bit of money to buy that other thing, but I still wanted a compressor, so I picked this up. Great value. I really love this. The Cali 76 is a little bit better, but not by much. I think this thing's great, and I actually like it a little bit better for electric, maybe not as good for acoustic. But I like it a lot. I think it's got a great sound, great character. Love the features. Love this new drive. I haven't messed around with the drive as much as I would like. But again, compromise. If I need an extra drive pedal, I could click that drive switch on there and turn dirt on, and I have an extra thing. So it's not just one thing. It's not just a compressor. It's also an overdrive. It goes from the overdrive. The next loop is the PettyJohn PettyDrive. This is the deluxe version, so it's got the higher end components. I run it at 9 volts, which originally was a compromise because it can go higher in voltage, which generally I assume, or I've always associated with a better sound, more headroom and stuff. Because I didn't have the ability because of other stuff that I'm powering, mostly these two, I couldn't do that. It ended up being a blessing in disguise, though, because I found I like this pedal better at 9 volts. That's just my opinion. Somebody else might like it better the other way. But I found if you're shooting for compromises, if you're trying to force restrictions on yourself, creativity comes, and this ended up sounding better. Supposedly this is like a voxy kind of sound, and this is supposed to be like a tweed kind of sound, an overdrive, a distortion, but they're supposed to have those two sort of amp-like voicings. That's a guide. It kind of is there and it's kind of not, so whatever. But having 1, 2, 3 different sounds that I can play with, this I almost have, it's pretty clean. It's a unity gain with the amp. The idea is just to give me a different EQ flavor, a different kind of sound, whether my amp's set clean or dirty. And with the attenuator, I've got a lot of flexibility in how I set it. This is always dirty. How clean or how dirty depends on how the amp's set, but this is my true kind of overdrive. Now I have this clean boost here. If the amp's clean, I might switch it down and use that little bit of grit. There can be a very, very mild bit of grit put in. But if it's dirty, or if it's at all close to breakup, I like it super clean. I find it muddies up the tone if not. If you're on something like a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe that's always going to be clean, then you flip that down and it's really nice. But for a slower wattage amp, which mine's like 20 watts, always want it clean. But to be able to mix and match which sounds I'm using together, and then this, since it's out of a loop, whatever program I'm in, if I'm in a loop, I don't have to go in and change what pedals have been selected, because this, you say I want this loop, and that loop on, and then you save it, and then you're in a programmable bank, and I can go verse, chorus, bridge. Well, no matter what I'm in, if I think I need a little bit more, boom, I hit that. If I want to mess with these two, add something, that's available. And then if my amp is clean, or, it's a boost. If my amp's pretty dirty, which I do sometimes, then it's not really a boost so much as it hits the amp, and the amp's already compressing, so it's not going to change the volume so much. It just is a really nice boost, pushing the amp harder into its own overdrive, which is really cool. After the loop 2, I go to loop 3, which is my modulation loop. I've got the Boss Super Chorus. This is an old 90s Pink Label one, so I'm told it's like analog or something. I don't care. I think the Boss sounds rad, whether it's new or old. And then that's the Voyager Trem from Spaceman. That thing has an overdrive circuit on it. It also has all kinds of options. You can go watch the demo videos for it. It's a lot of fun and a lot of options. It's more than just a tremolo pedal. But it's in one loop because I don't have enough loops for everything. So they share a loop. That's the modulation loop. And usually what I do is I only have one on, and I'll turn one off and turn one on or whatever, depending on the song or the set list or what I'm going for. This usually is for something a little more vintagey, Ryan Adams, Buddy Miller, Black Keys. This is usually for something a little more modern, modern Coldplay, new wave kind of stuff. Just depends on what I'm going for. And that's the kind of the fun is that you have some flexibility with all this. After the modulation one is the delay, the Memory Man Tap Tempo, and this is a compromise delay. It has a lot of features and sounds from a lot of different delay pedals, digital, analog, tape that I like, and I could only put one delay pedal on, so this was kind of the compromised choice. I would probably prefer to have 2 or 3 different delays on my pedal board, but at a smaller pedal board, that was just the way it had to be. So this is the choice I made. Right now, because it's Christmas time, it's set to sort of a slap back in triplets, doing a lot of that with the spring reverb on the MXR pedal, get that kind of old vintagey Christmas sound. That being said, I've been playing with triplets slower, and I find that if you're using triplets instead of the dotted eighth notes, you get some really cool echoes. It's not quite as aggressive, so if you're doing a slower song and you might normally do that standard, praise and worship dotted eighth delay, you might try, if you have subdivisions, checking triplets out. But I can kind of cover all the ground I want. I can cover vintage sounds, modern sounds, because the Memory Man's a bright sounding analog delay. It doesn't muddy things up the way that some really great analog delays do, but not what I need. I need a lot of versatility. So have a lot of fun with that. And then it kind of mixes well because it has the onboard preamp. It can kind of be used to drive the amp itself, so I don't need a drive pedal to really cut through. It's really nice that way. The pick tin there, churchcollective.com, friends of mine, I love those guys. than the MXR Reverb. It's a great compromise reverb. I kind of go from loving it to hating it. You know, the most comparable thing probably is the Hall of Fame from TC. The funny thing is I hate the spring and the plate on the Hall of Fame, and I love the room and the hall. I don't love the hall on this, and I love the plate, and I like the spring a lot. So what do you know? Right now it's set to spring because, like I told you, I was doing the slap back and the spring kind of sounds for vintage Christmas sounds. But you could split to the plate or the modulated or the epic, and then it all sounds really nice. I don't care for the pad setting, but I could see where a lot of praise and worship guys would really like the shimmer on that. It's a compromise reverb. It's not my favorite reverb. It's not the best at any one thing, but it does a lot of things really well. It's a small format. The only bummer is, and they don't really tell you this, is it is a higher MA draw like a Strymon pedal would be, or like this guy is. You have to have the higher output. So I have 2 of those on the Voodoo Lab Pedal Power 2, so I can power 2. So this takes away a higher output. So if I wanted to run, say, I don't know, like a Strymon Deco or something like that, if I wanted to run something higher output here or there, I just couldn't. It has to be, you know, has to be something lower output. So just be aware of that if you're checking out the MXR, but it's a great compromise board. And then I've got the tuner, and the reason I keep the Polytune on instead of the Mini, which would fit better, I've got a little Polytune Mini, is that it provides an extra power supply. And this is really maximizing all your resources, because there's not enough power in here to power all of this, because this needs power, and you know, all this stuff needs power. So the chorus pedal is actually being powered daisy chaining off of this. And then the pick tin is sitting on top of a disaster area voltage doubler, and that's doubling the signal up to 18 volts for this thing. Again, you gotta kind of have to work the system a little bit. You know, I could double 18 volts off of here using a thing, but that takes away a power slot, and I need an extra one. So finding compromise. But with this board, I can pretty much do whatever I want. I can do the standard Hillsong, Bethel, Elevation Church, Jesus Culture kind of sounds. I can do the stuff that I like to listen to on my own, Ryan Adams, Black Keys. I can do anything from Parachutes to the new Coldplay record in between. You know, you just get a lot of different sounds on here. You know, you can't go fully into any one thing, but all the sounds and the basses and stuff you like can get covered. And I could walk into almost any band situation, whether it's church band or a youth camp or playing out at a club or a bar or something like that, and I could get it done. And that's one of the really nice things about the Benson here. You know, it's got a lot of versatility. It sounds great clean. After about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, it starts to break up, so you can have a dirty amp. It's not too high voltage. American and British voicings. Really, it's kind of a EQ. American, you know, it's vintagey sounding. But basically, when you throw on to the British voicing, it tightens up the lows, and it emphasizes the mids in a nice way. So it's a little more aggressive. But you know, when I'm able to change all that with the Tone King attenuator, I'm able to kind of control clean and dirty a bit more too. You know, when you kind of factor all those things in with this, you can cover a lot of ground. So anyway, that's what I use. This is my main rig. I've been taking this around for the last month as I've been playing different churches and leading worship at different churches. I can use this with acoustic, with electric, any kind of options here. It gives me a lot of tonal choices. So that's what I'm using as my main rig, and hope you found that interesting. If you have any questions, you can comment below or hit me up at realworldworship.org.